I'm here with Bonny Specker, epidemiologist from South Dakota State University, who is going to be giving us weekly updates on what's going on with the COVID-19 situation. Now, if you're not familiar with what an epidemiologist is, they are an individual who studies the distribution and determinants of health and disease in human populations. Now, Bonny, what do you have for us today?
Well, I'm going to go through some of the highlights of what's happened this past week throughout Brookings, the state, the nation, and the world. Worldwide, there's about 12.4 million cases and 220,000 cases are being diagnosed per day, and that is increasing quite significantly. There are close to 556,000 deaths worldwide, with 4,700 deaths per day. And the number of deaths per day has been fairly steady over the last week. Nationally, there have been 3.2 million cases diagnosed with 55,000 new cases per day. And this has been increasing and is the highest it's been at the moment. There have been 135,000 deaths nationally, and that's more than the 117,000 Americans who died in World War I, which I think a lot of people don't really grasp the number. Over the last week, there's been an average of 620 deaths per day, which has been fairly steady. That's not increasing or decreasing. This week in South Dakota, there have been 423 new cases this week with a total of 7,401. The number of cases per day has been pretty steady, and about 70% of the cases this past week are outside the Sioux Falls area. The percent of cases in the 60-plus age group is also increasing since July 1st. 30% of the cases have been in this high-risk group, which is not a good predictor of what's going to happen in the future because these are the people with the poorer outcomes. A total of 726 individuals have been hospitalized with COVID, 39 of those in the last 7 days, and there have been 10 deaths in the past week for a total of 107 deaths. So that's the state. As far as Brookings County, there have been 20 new cases in Brookings the past week for a total of 90 cases, and the average number of new cases per day has increased over the last week. There's been 4 hospitalizations to date, one of those in the last week, and no deaths, fortunately. In terms of mobility data, which is shown on the slide presentation that's posted on the website, you can look at what's been happening in terms of mobility in South Dakota. Non-residential mobility, that's like going to the grocery store, going to work. They have one called transit, and that represents gas stations, rest areas, how many people have been visiting those areas. That is above baseline. Baseline is the month of January. It's been above baseline since June, and the time spent in homes or residences is similar to what it was at baseline. The only location that's actually below baseline is workplace. Brookings County, the average non-residential mobility is below baseline still, and the time spent in the residences is slightly above baseline, meaning that people are still social distancing somewhat in Brookings County, not as much as earlier in the spring, but more than what they were doing in January. And that's all for this week, but just to remind everyone that the face mask really protects others. Be thoughtful of the people around you, and please wear face masks or face coverings. Thanks.
Thank you, Bonny.